What if I told you Ferrari's routine tire test today wasn't routine at all? What if I told you the SF-25 on track at Mugello wasn't the same car that's been suffering all season? What if I told you Ferrari secretly tested 2026 tech, active aero, new suspension, next-gen tires? And what if I told you this shocking test could redefine Formula One's balance of power next year? Imagine this. Ferrari announced a simple tire test at Mugello. Nothing unusual, nothing to see. But the car that rolled out of the garage wasn't the SF-25 fans have watched suffer all season. It was something else. A machine carrying the DNA of 2026, disguised under the familiar red paint. Movable aero, redesigned suspension, experimental tires. Ferrari didn't just test, they exposed a secret project in plain sight. And suddenly, what looked routine became explosive. The SF-25 on track today was a mule, a laboratory on wheels. Charles Leclerc completed 25 laps in wet conditions, testing how the car's active elements behaved on tricky asphalt. Later, Zhou Guanyu, standing in for the absent Hamilton, racked up 75 laps, pushing harder each time. By the afternoon, with slicks bolted on, he clocked a 1 foot 22.012 inches. That wasn't just fast, it was a revelation. Ferrari had shown their hand, and it was stronger than anyone thought. What made today shocking wasn't only the lap times. It was the proof that Ferrari are already working with next year's rulebook. The front wing carried active flaps, simulating 2020's movable aero. The suspension was rebuilt to erase the stiffness that has haunted the SF-25 all year. Even the floor was tuned to anticipate narrower tires. Ferrari aren't waiting for regulations to arrive. They're already living in the future, gathering real-world data, while their rivals are still locked in simulations. The weather added theater to the revelation. Rain soaked Mugello in the morning, forcing Leclerc onto intermediates. Yet even in the wet, the modified car looked calmer than the erratic SF-25 we've seen this season. When the track dried, Zhou unleashed its true potential. Times fell by more than 12 seconds as slicks came on, proving the car's active aero wasn't just functional, it was transformative. Ferrari had built a platform that could flex with the circuit's demands, stable in the wet, devastating in the dry. Hamilton's absence made the story even stranger. While his dog Roscoe fought for life at home, Ferrari lost their most experienced voice at the very moment they needed him most. Zhou delivered speed and data, but Hamilton's feedback, refined across 2 decades of elite racing, was missing. Insiders already whisper this gap could echo into 2026, because a test this critical cannot be repeated under budget caps. Ferrari gather numbers today, yes, but they lost insight only Hamilton could provide. That absence hangs over Mugello like a shadow. So here is the truth fans weren't supposed to see. Today's test wasn't about 2025, it was about Ferrari's future. They turned Mugello into a laboratory, testing 2026 tech in plain sight while disguising it as routine. And the results were clear. Ferrari may be broken this season, but they could be first to master the next era. If today's data holds, the Scuderia haven't just survived their worst year, they may have built the foundation for dominance to come. What Ferrari rolled out at Mugello today was not a normal SF-25. It was a mule car, a machine dressed in familiar livery, but carrying secrets beneath the skin. At first glance, it looked like the same underperforming Ferrari that has stumbled all season. But a closer inspection revealed critical differences. The front wing featured active elements, movable flaps designed to simulate the 2026 rules mandating adaptive aero. The suspension geometry was rebuilt, stiffer at the rear, more compliant at the front, an attempt to erase the contradictions that crippled the SF-25 on turn-in and exit. Even the floor had been reprofiled, designed to mimic how next year's narrower tires will interact with the car's aerodynamics. This wasn't a repair job. It was a prototype hidden in plain sight, Ferrari turning a tire test into a glimpse of tomorrow. The brilliance of this approach lies in deception. By labeling it a Pirelli tire test, Ferrari avoided scrutiny. Tire testing is permitted, heavily monitored, but still flexible enough for teams to disguise experiments. Rivals expected Ferrari to gather baseline data for 2025's final races. Instead, they gathered live telemetry for 2026 concepts. Active aero, suspension, tire interplay, systems that exist today only in simulation for Mercedes, McLaren, and Red Bull were already running in the real world in Ferrari's garage. It was a masterstroke of opportunism. While others refine on screens, Ferrari are building with asphalt under their wheels. The mule car is no longer just an engineering trick, it is Ferrari's secret weapon, and the Mugello laps proved it works. The importance cannot be overstated. Formula One's 2026 regulations represent the sport's biggest reset in decades. Whoever adapts fastest will dominate, just as Mercedes did in 2014's hybrid revolution. By running a disguised SF-25 mule, Ferrari may have leapfrogged their rivals. The car's behavior in changing conditions gave them priceless real-world data: how active aero stabilizes grip in wet, how new suspension tolerates load, how prototype tires behave under stress. These are lessons no simulator can replicate. In essence, Ferrari are already writing their 2026 playbook, while their rivals are still sharpening pencils. Today's tire test wasn't about the present season. It was about planting a flag in the future, a bold declaration that Ferrari are done waiting. Mugello woke up under heavy clouds, the kind of Tuscan morning that turns any test into a lottery. The track was slick, rain pooling in the elevation changes, and Ferrari had no choice but to send Charles Leclerc out on intermediates. For fans, it looked like wasted laps. Wet running rarely produces clear answers. But what happened stunned the observers. The modified SF-25, carrying its secret 2026 components, looked calmer in the rain than the chaotic car that has plagued Ferrari all season. The front end bit with stability, the rear tracked without snapping loose, and Leclerc reported over the radio that the balance felt far more predictable. That alone was revelation enough. The flaws that haunted Ferrari in 2025 seemed, at least in part, engineered out of the mule. As the day unfolded, the weather flipped. The Tuscan sun broke through, drying the circuit by midday, and Ferrari handed the car to Zhou Guanyu. This was when the test truly exploded. On intermediates, his times were steady but unremarkable. Then the slicks came on. Lap after lap, the stopwatch fell, and by the time Zhou was settled, he had dropped more than 12 seconds compared to the wet runs. His best lap, a 1 foot 22.012 inches, wasn't just a number. It was proof that the mule car's active aero package unlocked massive performance as the track evolved. Mugello had exposed the duality of the prototype: stable in the wet, devastatingly quick in the dry. That transformation was the day's biggest revelation. Formula One cars usually struggle when conditions change abruptly, but Ferrari's mule adapted in a way the SF-25 never could. The movable aero smoothed transitions, the suspension geometry absorbed shifting loads, and the floor worked in harmony with the tires as grip returned. What looked like a weather-ruined morning became the perfect test bed for Ferrari's secret weapon. Mugello's unpredictable skies had handed the Scuderia the one thing simulations cannot: proof that their 2026 concept can survive the chaos of real-world racing. For all the excitement Mugello delivered, one shadow loomed over the day: Lewis Hamilton was missing. Instead of climbing into the modified SF-25, the seven-time champion stayed home in Monte Carlo, nursing his dog Roscoe through a life-threatening illness. A deeply human decision, but one that left Ferrari without their most experienced driver at the very moment their future was on track. In his place, Zhou Guanyu shouldered the workload. He delivered a marathon 75 laps, gathering reams of data. But data without context is only half the picture. What Ferrari lost was Hamilton's instinct, the ability to translate numbers into sensations, to feel the car's heartbeat and identify strengths or flaws before they show up on telemetry. Hamilton's absence matters because he was signed as Ferrari's compass for 2026. His career has spanned every technical revolution of the past 2 decades, from V8s to hybrids to ground effect aerodynamics. He has the unique ability to sense how a car behaves at the limit and to predict how it will evolve under regulation changes. That experience was precisely why Ferrari wanted him in red. Today's Mugello session was a golden opportunity to blend numbers with wisdom, to have Hamilton say, "This suspension will work in traffic," or "This aero balance will punish us on street circuits." Without him, the team collected only the surface of the story. Zhou's 1 foot 22.012 inches was quick, yes, but Zhou does not have Hamilton's encyclopedic feel for tires, aero sensitivity, or car dynamics. For Ferrari, that gap could echo into 2026. Under the strictures of the budget cap, every test counts, and lost feedback cannot simply be recovered later. Mugello gave Ferrari optimism, but it also left them with a hole: the absence of the man meant to guide them through the next revolution. For all the revelations of the day, Hamilton's missing voice might prove the most important detail of all. What Ferrari achieved at Mugello wasn't just a tire run. It was a glimpse into the next Formula One era. For the first time, they combined active aero, redesigned suspension, and prototype 2026 tires into a single package that actually ran in anger on track. The front wing, fitted with movable flaps, adjusted its angle dynamically, simulating the drag reduction and downforce on-demand systems that will define the future. On corner entry, the wing bled drag to sharpen turn in. On straights, it flattened for maximum speed. It was the kind of integration most rivals are still running only in wind tunnels. Ferrari, instead, had real-world data, their sensors humming as Mugello delivered lap after lap of answers. The suspension overhaul was just as vital. Gone was the contradictory geometry that plagued the SF-25, rigid at the front, sloppy at the rear. In its place was a balanced configuration, stiff enough to handle high loads, but compliant enough to keep the tires in their working window. This mattered most in the medium-speed sweepers of Mugello, where Zhou Guanyu reported stability Ferrari's 2025 car never offered. Combined with the prototype Pirellis, narrower and more sensitive than current compounds, the mule car behaved like a machine built for synergy, each system enhancing the other instead of fighting against it. For Ferrari, that was revolutionary. The leap was more than technical, it was strategic. Budget caps mean teams cannot afford missteps in 2026 preparation. Every pound and every hour counts. By integrating so many elements into a single session, Ferrari maximized their limited resources, advancing months ahead of rivals still testing components in isolation. They walked away from Mugello with a treasure chest of data. Tire wear curves under active aero loads, suspension response to transitional grip, aero efficiency under wet to dry conditions. This wasn't trial and error. This was Ferrari compressing an entire development phase into a single day. And in the context of modern Formula One, that efficiency might prove as valuable as raw speed.